I remember the exact moment my world tilted sideways. My laptop, my lifeline, my sanctuary, my carefully curated work was in pieces on the kitchen floor. The sound of plastic snapping under tiny, unstoppable fingers still echoes in my ears. My nephew, barely 5, grinned as if he'd just won a contest. And my sister, she shrugged, like it was nothing, muttering, "Kids break things." I sat at the marble countertop, silk blouse brushing against my wrists, staring at the fragments. The coffee I'd poured moments ago had gone cold, swirling in its cup like a tiny storm. My phone buzzed incessantly, messages from clients, reminders of deadlines, but my gaze stayed locked on the chaos. A deep, quiet rage bubbled alongside the hurt. This wasn't just a laptop. It was years of late nights, endless revisions, painstaking creations, and every bit of sweat I had poured into my career. And there she was, my sister, laughing it off over text, offering no apology, no accountability. I felt that familiar tug of invisibility, that old, uncomfortable squeeze of being underestimated by those who should have seen me. I wanted to scream, cry, or both, but instead, I closed my eyes, letting the silence speak louder than words ever could. Somewhere in that silence, a decision formed, a quiet, precise, unwavering plan. She thought it was just a broken laptop. But she had no idea that what she was really breaking was my patience, and that patience, once lost, could turn into power. I wasn't always this composed, this quietly unshakable. I remember sitting on the worn couch in my childhood living room, my hands trembling as I tried to explain why I needed space, why I needed respect. My parents had just dismissed another of my ambitions, rolling their eyes as if my dreams were nothing more than passing whims. My sister, always so quick with a laugh or a roll of her eyes, chimed in, "Don't be dramatic, it's not that big of a deal."
But it was.
Every dismissed idea, every belittled effort, felt like another brick in the wall separating me from them. I remember the lump in my throat, the sting of tears that wouldn't fall, and the heavy ache of being unheard. I wanted to shrink, to disappear, but somewhere deep inside, a stubborn ember refused to die. It was Grandma June who saw it first. She sat beside me one rainy afternoon, her knitting needles clicking softly as she offered me a small, leather-bound notebook. "Write your story, Em," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "Don't let them define you. You have to hold your own life in your hands." That notebook became my refuge. Every insult, every careless dismissal, I poured into those pages. And slowly, with ink-stained fingers and long nights, I started building something for myself. Visions of a life where my worth wasn't measured by their validation, but by my own persistence and skill. The laptop incident from years later, the first time my work was truly devalued, in front of my family, was just another push. I realized that dependence on anyone who wouldn't see me as I was would always leave me vulnerable. That day, I made a quiet but resolute promise. I would never rely on them again. I would earn, grow, and succeed in a way that they couldn't ignore, deny, or destroy. It was terrifying, stepping into independence alone. But fear and determination walked hand in hand, and I finally understood what Grandma had meant. I didn't just need to survive, I needed to thrive, and I would. I didn't know it at the time, but that small notebook and Grandma June's words were seeds that would grow into something powerful. After I moved out of my family's house, I rented a tiny studio apartment in downtown Chicago. The floorboards creaked, the walls were thin, and the air smelled faintly of old coffee and ambition. I spent hours at the tiny desk by the window, laptop open, heart racing, hands trembling, teaching myself every skill I could imagine. I wasn't lucky, I worked. I searched for mentors, people who believed in potential rather than pedigrees. That's how I met Claire, a seasoned graphic designer who had built her own boutique agency from nothing. She saw me poring over design tutorials, watching my fingers hover over the keyboard in doubt, and said, "You have the vision. You just need confidence and direction. Let me help." The months that followed were brutal. I battled self-doubt nightly. Clients rejected proposals I thought were brilliant, Emails went unanswered, and money was always tight. I remember nights lying on the small sofa, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I had the strength to keep going. But I clung to the belief that every small win was a brick in the foundation I was building. And slowly, the wins came. My first freelance client, a boutique bookstore, paid me enough to cover rent and groceries. My first profitable project was a logo for a local coffee shop chain. Each success was modest, but each felt like a quiet, private victory, a whispered reassurance that I was capable. I kept this success hidden from my family. Every call, every text from them, I deflected with small lies about work being slow or projects delayed. They had never taken my ambition seriously. Why should they see the life I was quietly crafting? I posted on social media occasionally, but nothing that revealed the scope of my achievements. My joy was private, intimate, and mine alone. By the time the laptop incident with my nephew occurred, I was already thriving in ways my family couldn't comprehend. I had clients across the country, a small team who respected and supported me, and an independence that felt like armor against the dismissal and condescension of the past. The young, uncertain woman who once trembled on the couch was gone. In her place was someone who understood that true success didn't need approval. It needed persistence, resilience, and quiet, unwavering belief in oneself. The invitation had been casual, my sister texting, "Hey, let's catch up this weekend at the house. Bring the laptop. Won't be a problem this time." I knew better. I knew this was her way of asserting normalcy, of pretending the past laptop incident had never mattered. But I agreed. After all, I could play along and I could show them just how wrong they had been. When I walked into their living room that Saturday afternoon, I saw the same familiar furniture, the same patterned rug, the same portraits of my younger self, smiling, obedient, unassuming, hanging on the walls. My nephew ran toward me, grinning, clearly thrilled to see me, unaware that I held a quiet reckoning in my pocket, my laptop safely tucked under my arm in a new, protective case. But they weren't prepared for me. My sister's smile faltered as she noticed my designer coat, the sleek tote from a boutique agency I didn't mention, the glint of a smartwatch on my wrist. My parents' eyes flicked to the laptop case, but they said nothing. The room was thick with expectation, and I let it sit there. Let the silence stretch. Let the weight of years of dismissal, condescension, and undermining hang like a cloud. I set the laptop on the table with deliberate care, then opened it. My projects filled the screen, multi-state clients, full campaigns, complex designs that had been seen and celebrated across the country. I looked up slowly, letting them take in the truth. Every eye widened. Every breath seemed caught in their throats. "I'm sure you remember this laptop," I said softly, letting the words roll over them. It was more than just a device. It held years of my work, my growth, my ambition. And when it was destroyed, you all shrugged. You said, "Kids break things." Well, it wasn't just broken. So was your understanding of me. I paused, letting the words sink. My sister's face drained of color, my parents stiffened. I continued, calm but unwavering. "Since that day, I've built something you couldn't see. Something you couldn't touch. I've started my own design firm. I employ talented people, I manage clients nationwide, and yes, I am financially independent in ways that you might never have expected." The room was quiet. My words hung like sunlight cutting through a heavy fog. My sister's hand flew to her mouth, eyes wide with shock. My mother's fingers twitched nervously over her necklace, and my father's posture stiffened, as if bracing for a punch he hadn't seen coming. "And as for the trust you thought I would leave untouched?" I said, letting a small, almost imperceptible smile curve my lips. "I took measures to ensure it grows responsibly. I didn't just fix what was broken. I made sure you learned a lesson in accountability. Kids may break things, but adults should know better." They stared, incredulous, caught between guilt, shame, and awe. This wasn't a tantrum. It wasn't revenge for the sake of revenge. It was a revelation, a reckoning. And they had no choice but to see me, not the little girl they underestimated, but the woman who had quietly, methodically, rewritten the rules. The room was silent for a long moment after my revelation. Their shock hung in the air like a heavy curtain, and I realized then just how much control I now held. Not through anger, not through force, but through the undeniable truth of what I had built. I could see it in their eyes. They were finally seeing me, the woman I had fought to become. I took a deep breath, letting the calm settle in my chest. "I'm not here to punish you," I said, my voice steady, firm, but not cruel. "I'm here to offer guidance and to set conditions. Because respect, accountability, and personal growth are non-negotiable from this point forward." I turned to my sister first. "You need to understand the value of responsibility. You let a child destroy my work, and you excused it. That won't happen again. Not with me, and not with anyone you claim to love. Your first step is learning to take ownership, even for mistakes that seem small." My mother looked at me, hesitant. "And me," she whispered. "You need to let go of the dismissiveness," I said. "Stop belittling what you don't understand. You can support, encourage, and respect. That's your part in this family now. No more undermining. No more ignoring the ambition of those around you." My father shifted uncomfortably. "And the trust fund?" I smiled, controlled and deliberate. "The trust fund isn't gone. It's being restructured. It will grow, but only if everyone demonstrates accountability. If you fail to meet these expectations, the consequences are real. I've learned that lessons need to be felt, not just talked about." Every condition was rooted in growth, not revenge. I wanted them to understand the weight of neglect, the sting of disregard, and the importance of integrity. I wanted them to experience, if only briefly, the consequences of their inaction. But I also wanted to offer a path forward, clear, measurable, and fair. And then I added one final note, softening the tension just enough to remind them I wasn't heartless. "I care about this family," I said, my voice carrying warmth beneath the firmness. "I want you to succeed, not just financially, but as people. But I will not let the past repeat itself. I've built a life I'm proud of, and I will not compromise it for complacency or excuses. You have a choice: grow, or face the results of ignoring reality." I watched as the words sank in. The shift had occurred quietly but completely. For years, they had underestimated me, dismissed me, and taken my patience for granted. Now the balance had changed. Power wasn't about intimidation. It was about vision, preparation, and the courage to act decisively. For the first time, I felt the full weight of my independence. And it was intoxicating. Weeks passed, and slowly, the lessons I set began to take root. My sister started taking responsibility for small things, acknowledging mistakes, managing her time and obligations. With more care, my parents, once so dismissive, began to ask questions, not intrusive, but curious and respectful, seeking to understand instead of judge. Even my nephew, oblivious to the financial lessons, started learning boundaries, taught gently by his mother. I watched these changes with a quiet satisfaction, a sense of calm I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about growth, accountability, and the realization that people could change if given the chance, and if held to a standard. I reflected on every late night in that tiny apartment, every rejection, every moment of doubt. All of it had led to this: a life I had built on my own terms, a family learning to see me as I truly was, and a peace that came from knowing I would never allow anyone to diminish my worth again. And then, one evening, I found myself holding that same leather-bound notebook Grandma June had given me years ago. Its edges were frayed, pages filled with my younger self's raw, unpolished thoughts. I ran my fingers over the familiar lines, the handwriting shaky, full of hope and desperation. A smile touched my lips. This notebook had been more than advice. It had been a map, a guide to the woman I was always meant to become. I realized then that strength wasn't just in the victories, the bank accounts, or the recognition. It was in the quiet moments of resilience, the choices made when no one was watching, and the refusal to let past hurts dictate my future. I had turned destruction into opportunity, betrayal into empowerment, and frustration into freedom. Standing by my window that night, city lights sparkling below, I breathed deeply and whispered to myself a final affirmation that would carry me forward. I am not defined by what they break. I am defined by what I build. And in that statement, I found closure, strength, and grace, all wrapped into one unshakable truth. Bottom of form.